Can you speak to what Q-Star is?
We are not ready to talk about that.
What did Ilya see?
We will release an amazing new model this year. I don't know what the % chance is that I eventually get shot, but it's not zero.
Lex Fridman just released a new 2-hour episode with Sam Altman, so I watched the entire thing and compiled the most interesting, fascinating, and informative segments. Enjoy.
What did Ilya see?
Ilya has not seen AGI. None of us have seen AGI. We've not built AGI. I do think one of the many things that I really love about Ilya is he takes AGI very seriously. Ilya is one of the people that I've spent the most time over the last couple of years talking about what we need to do to ensure we get it right, to ensure that we succeed at the mission. So Ilya did not see AGI.
By the way, tomorrow I'm releasing the second stage of my AI agents course, which will be focused on how to build self-improving agents, which I believe will be a super valuable skill in 2024. If that sounds interesting to you, then make sure to join my community. First link in the description.
Our mutual friend Elon sued OpenAI. What is the essence of what he's criticizing? To what degree does he have a point? To what degree is he wrong?
I don't know what it's really about. We started off just thinking we were going to be a research lab. This was before language models were a big deal. This was before we had any idea about an API or selling access to a chatbot. I think with like many fundamentally new things, you start fumbling through the dark and you make some assumptions, most of which turn out to be wrong. And then it became clear that we were going to need to do different things and also have huge amounts more capital. So we said, okay, well, the structure doesn't quite work for that. But we got here gradually with, I think, reasonable decisions at each point along the way. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do it totally differently if we could go back now with an oracle, but you don't get the oracle at the time. But anyway, in terms of what Elon's real motivations here are, I don't know.
If you pay attention to Sam's body language and tone of voice here, you'll notice that he's much more angry and much more combative about the Elon situation, and Sam mentioned multiple times that he looks up to him. So imagine how that would feel, the person you look up to the most suing your company and trying to take you down. Like, that must really hurt.
Mischaracterization from Elon here about one of the points you just made, which is the degree of uncertainty you had at the time. You guys are a bunch of a small group of researchers crazily talking about AGI when everybody's laughing at that thought.
Wasn't that long ago Elon was crazily talking about launching rockets?
Yeah.
When people were laughing at that thought?
I do think that there's personal stuff here, that there was a split. OpenAI and a lot of amazing people here chose to part ways with Elon. So there's a personal
Elon
thing.
chose to part ways. He thought OpenAI was going to fail. He wanted total control to sort of turn it around. We wanted to keep going in the direction that now has become OpenAI. He also wanted Tesla to be able to build an AGI effort. At various times, he wanted to make OpenAI into a for-profit company that he could have control of or have it merge with Tesla. We didn't want to do that, and he decided to leave, which that's fine.
So what is the word open in OpenAI mean? To Elon at the time, Ilya has talked about this in the email exchanges and all this kind of stuff. What does it mean to you at the time? What does it mean to you now?
I would definitely pick speaking of going back with an oracle, I'd pick a different name. One of the things that I think OpenAI is doing that is the most important of everything that we're doing is putting powerful technology in the hands of people for free. We don't run ads on our free version. We want to put increasingly powerful tools in the hands of people for free and get them to use them. That kind of open is really important to our mission. I think if you give people great tools and teach them to use them, or don't even teach them, they'll figure it out, and let them go build an incredible future for each other with that, that's a big deal. So if we can keep putting free or low cost, or free and low cost, powerful AI tools out in the world, I think that's a huge deal for how we fulfill the mission.
Another amazing question. What does the open in OpenAI mean? Because it's obvious that it used to stand for open source, but what does it mean now? And I'm so glad Lex asked these questions.
So he said, change your name to closed AI and I'll drop the lawsuit. I mean, is it going to become this battleground in the land of memes about
I
the
think
name?
that speaks to the seriousness with which Elon means the lawsuit. Look, I mean, Grok had not open sourced anything until people pointed out it was a little bit hypocritical, and then he announced that Grok will open source things this week.
On the question of open source, do you think there's a lot of companies playing with this idea? It's quite interesting. Meta, surprisingly, has led the way on this. of like really open sourcing the model. Of course, it's not the state of the art model, but open sourcing Llama. What are the pros and cons of open sourcing? Have you played around with this idea?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a place for open source models, particularly smaller models that people can run locally. I think there's huge demand for. I think there will be some open source models. There will be some closed source models. It won't be unlike other ecosystems in that way.
Speaking of open source, I'm actually going to make a prediction. I think when OpenAI releases GPT-5, they will open source GPT-3 and GPT 3.5 at the same time. Now, why do I think this? Well, first of all, it would greatly boost their reputation. It would reignite the open source meaning behind the word open, right? But also, they will have nothing to lose. When we get GPT-5, it will become the top model. GPT-4 will be the free model. So there will not be much use for GPT 3.5 anymore. That's why I think they will open source it.
Sora, there's like a million questions I could ask. First of all, it's amazing. It truly is amazing. What do you think it understands about the world?
I think all of these models understand something more about the world model than most of us give them credit for. It's easy to like look at the weaknesses, see through the veil, and say, this is all fake. But it's not all fake. It's just some of it works and some of it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Or there's examples where like the underlying physics looks so well represented over a lot of steps in a sequence. It's like, this is like quite impressive. Fundamentally, these models are just getting better, and that will keep happening. If you look at the trajectory from DALL-E 1 to 2 to 3 to Sora, there were a lot of people that were dunked on each version saying it can't do this, it can't do that. And like, look at it now.
So this was very interesting. Sam basically confirmed that Sora is the equivalent of DALL-E 4. By the way, Sora is capable of generating images. They've proven that on Twitter and they've shown some of the images. Now, in some situations, DALL-E 3 is still better, but it would be interesting if there was no DALL-E 4. Instead, Sora would just take a role of DALL-E and generate both videos and images.
Have you considered opening it up a little more details?
We have. You mean for Sora specifically?
Sora specifically, because it's so interesting. What are the dangers? Why are you concerned about releasing the system? What are some possible dangers of this?
I mean, frankly speaking, one thing we have to do before releasing the system is just like get it to work at a level of efficiency that will deliver the scale people are going to want from this. So that I don't want to like downplay that. And there's still a ton of work to do there. You can imagine like issues with deepfakes, misinformation. We try to be a thoughtful company about what we put out into the world. And it doesn't take much thought to think about the ways this can go badly.
Or is fair use under copyright law?
I think the question behind that question is, do people who create valuable data deserve to have some way that they get compensated for use of it? And that, I think the answer is yes. But, if I'm like an artist, for example, A, I would like to be able to opt out of people generating art in my style. And B, if they do generate art in my style, I'd like to have some economic model associated with that.
Yeah, it's that transition from CDs to Napster to Spotify. We have to figure out some kind of model.
The model changes, but people have got to get paid.
Well, there should be some kind of incentive, if we zoom out even more, for humans to keep doing cool shit.
Of everything I worry about, humans are going to do cool shit, and society is going to find some way to reward it. We want to create, we want to be useful, we want to like achieve status in whatever way. Mm-hmm. That's not going anywhere, I don't think.
All right, so this is good to hear. Sam basically thinks that there will not be a crisis of meaning, that people will always do interesting and cool stuff, and that the society, we will figure out ways to reward people who build new things. And this is honestly very hopeful to hear from the man leading the AI revolution.
People talk about like how many jobs is AI going to do in 5 years. The way I think about it is not what % of jobs AI will do, but what % of tasks will AI do and over what time horizon. So if you think of all of the like 5-second tasks in the economy, how many of those can AI do? I think that's a way more interesting, impactful, important question than how many jobs AI can do, because it is a tool that will work at increasing levels of sophistication and over longer and longer time horizons and let people operate at a higher level of abstraction. So maybe people are way more efficient at the job they do.
This has to be the single best way I've ever heard someone describe the job displacement problem. If you think about it, our productivity, our focus is not limited by a single task. It's more like death by 1,000 cuts. Think about your day. Most of the distractions are small things, whether that's an email, a notification, a pop-up. That is death by 1,000 cuts.
I think that for videos on YouTube, it'll be the same. many videos, maybe most of them, will use AI tools in the production, but they'll still be fundamentally driven by a person sort of directing and running it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, it's scary, but it's interesting to think about. Humans like to watch other humans or other human.
Humans really care about other humans a lot.
Yeah. If there's a cooler thing that's better than a human, humans care about that for like 2 days and then they go back to humans.
That seems very deeply wired.
Okay, so Sam thinks that AI will not replace YouTubers. Honestly, good news.
Let me ask you about GPT-4. Looking back, it'll probably be this kind of historic, pivotal moment with 3, 5, and 4 with ChatGPT.
Maybe 5 will be the pivotal moment. I don't know. Hard to say that looking forwards.
ChatGPT is pretty damn impressive, like historically impressive. So allow me to ask, what's been the most impressive capabilities of GPT-4 to you and GPT-4 Turbo?
I think it kind of sucks. Look, I don't want to downplay the accomplishment of GPT-4, but I don't want to overstate it either. And I think this point that we are on an exponential curve, we will look back relatively soon at GPT-4 like we look back at GPT-3 now.
ChatGPT was a transition to where people like, there is an uptick of believing. Not internally at OpenAI, perhaps. There's believers here, but when you think
and in that sense, I do think it'll be a moment where a lot of the world went from not believing to believing. That was more about the ChatGPT interface than the and by the interface and product, I also mean the post-training of the model and how we tune it to be helpful to you and how to use it than the underlying model itself.
I'm super glad Sam mentioned this. The success of ChatGPT is mainly because of the user interface rather than the foundation model. And we need such an interface for agents and for other applications. So if you're thinking of starting an AI startup, think in terms of simple UI that millions of people would use.
What's this mysterious Q-Star project? Is it also in the same nuclear facility?
There is no nuclear facility.
That's what a person with a nuclear facility always says.
I would love to have a secret nuclear facility. There isn't one.
One can dream.
OpenAI is not a good company at keeping secrets. It would be nice. We're like been plagued by a lot of leaks, and it would be nice if we were able to have something like that.
Can you speak to what Q-Star is?
We are not ready to talk about that.
See, but an answer like that means there's something to talk about. It's very mysterious, Sam.
I mean, we work on all kinds of research.
Yeah.
We have said for a while that we think better reasoning in these systems is an important direction that we'd like to pursue. We haven't cracked the code yet. We're very interested in it.
Right. This is kind of a theme that you're saying is you're basically gradually going up an exponential slope. But from an outsider perspective, from me just watching it, it does feel like there's leaps.
Part of the reason that we deploy the way we do is that we think, we call it iterative deployment. Rather than go build in secret until we got all the way to GPT-5, we decided to talk about GPT-1, 2, 3, and 4. And I think one of the best things that OpenAI has done is this strategy. And we get the world to pay attention to the progress, to take AGI seriously, to think about what systems and structures and governance we want in place before we're like under the gun and have to make a rush decision. I think that's really good. But the fact that people like you and others say you still feel like there are these leaps makes me think that maybe we should be doing our releasing even more iteratively.
Wait, does this mean that ChatGPT updates in the future will be more frequent? Because it really sounded that way. But what gives me actually some concern is that Greg Brockman said a similar thing almost a year ago on Twitter, that they're considering doing incremental updates, and people were hyped about that. And people thought that we would get GPT 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and that was, again, almost a year ago, and they still haven't done this. So
when is GPT-5 coming out again?
I don't know. That's an honest answer.
Is it blink twice if it's this year?
We will release an amazing model this year. I don't know what we'll call it. We'll release over in the coming months many different things before we talk about like a GPT-5 like model called that or not called that, or a little bit worse or a little bit better than what you'd expect from a GPT-5. I think we have a lot of other important things to release. I don't know what the % chance is that I eventually get shot, but it's not zero.
Oh, like we want to stop this.
Maybe. What I meant more about theatrical risks is like AI is going to have, I believe, tremendously more good consequences than bad ones, but it is going to have bad ones. And there will be some bad ones that are bad but not theatrical. Like a lot more people have died of air pollution than nuclear reactors, for example. But most people worry more about living next to a nuclear reactor than a coal plant.
Or humanoid robot brains from OpenAI at some point?
At some point.
How important is embodied AI to you?
I think it's like sort of depressing if we have AGI and the only way to like get things done in the physical world is like to make a human go do it. So I really hope we also get humanoid robots or some sort of physical world robots.
I mean, OpenAI has some history, quite a bit of history working in robotics.
Yeah.
But it hasn't quite like done in terms of
we're
emphasis.
Like a small company. We have to really focus. And also robots were hard for the wrong reason at the time. But like we will return to robots in some way at some point.